Jimmy Butler joined LeBron James and Luka Doncic as the only players to make multiple go-ahead shots in the final 24 seconds of either the fourth quarter or the overtime period. How important, when you're looking for a clutch go-to player in those kind of final stretches, can a guy like that be?
Oh, that's huge. I mean, you're going to have to make some shots. Look, you don't get to the conference finals and play a poor team. That team has won 2 series, and they're going to, come in there, and you have to have guys that can finish. I mean, Butler's one of those guys that under pressure, beautiful passer. I love that little action to give and go. But what he can do is that under pressure, he can get his own shot off. And he made that tough 3 in the corner. He had a hard driving layup in there late in the games and stuff. So, they have a guy that can go and get you baskets, and you have to have that. But the thing I liked about them is the ball swung around. Jay Crowder's getting shots. Hero's getting shots. Everybody's getting shots on that team, not just Jimmy Butler, but they do have a closer. And when you have a closer, man, you have a lot of confidence.
And it was Goran Dragic as well. You mentioned the other guys,
yes.
But he had a postseason high 29 points in Game 1. What made him so effective?
How did I forget Goran Dragic? Thank you, Kristen, for reminding me.
He does it so quietly.
He was great.
Yeah.
I coached Gordon. Goran in Houston, and what a great young man he is. I mean, this guy plays hard all the time, but what he was doing, he was taking the fight to the Celtics. He was coming off pick and rolls, going downhill, weaving through, getting out in the break. He's got little float game. He's left-handed. Those left-handed guys are always crafty, and he gets in the paint, but he just put pressure on them all the time. Had a great game, and I thought he was the catalyst for that team winning that. And what the Heat did is they hung around versus the Celtics, and eventually just hanging around, got into overtime, and finally took control of the game. But they hung around a lot because of Goran Dragic. But again, everybody had a big part to play. Crowder, Hero, everybody played well for that team.
And it wasn't just offensively, but defensively as well, because it was Bam Adebayo's block that essentially sealed the game. For as much confidence as it takes for Jason Tatum to go up and try and throw it down to win the game, it takes, I would imagine, that same level of confidence to go up and try and block it, right?
Yeah, you got to attack the shooter. I mean, right now, Bam comes over. He gets look at the big step he has. He's in help side, but he comes over, and I mean, he comes over from outside of the paint on the left side to block that shot. And but you got to beat that force, because I'll tell you right now, Tatum was going up to throw that down. And, I've blocked a few dunks in my days, and I tell you what, there's a lot of pressure. His hand was damn near in the rim.
Yeah.
I mean, his wrists got bent down, and there's a lot, you go up, and you've got to go up with force. So if you're standing there and don't have momentum taking you to the play, you get dunked on. But he had his momentum. What a beautiful time to block. And, I give him a lot of courage. There's a lot of guys that wouldn't have done that, would have saw Tatum hit the launching pad and would just sit up. I mean, I'm not going to get posterized. At that point, and that's what I'll always tell people, is that with championship teams, they're not worried about that stuff, posterizing this. They're like, man, I got to get a stop. And I love that kid. He's a fearless competitor, always protecting the rim, which brings me one thing I say really quickly about the Celtics. They got to drive more. They got to attack Bam, because Bam's going to help all the time, and then find people, because he's constantly in that paint, protecting that paint, and they never collapse the Heat. And they were almost like they were afraid of Bam in there protecting the rim. You got to challenge those big shot blockers.
Let's talk a little bit more about the Celtics, because they did have a 12-point lead going into the fourth quarter. Could you break down some of what you saw for me? Well, break down in those late game stretches?
Yeah, I just thought that Boston got very passive. Their offense just almost stayed completely on the perimeter. And, if you see here right now, you're coming off, you got everybody, you have good spacing, but now you got to attack. I mean, at a certain point, the ball never gets past the 3-point line on that thing. At that point, someone's got to break the seam. And again, you're going to see nice spacing. That ball has got to get into the paint. And you've got to attack all, there. And you're going to see again here, as the ball comes around and the attack, long jump shot, ball never got inside the 3-point line. And you've got to be able to attack. Like I say, watch the Heat's defense, which is very good. They're all matched up, but every man is just keeping his man in front of him. And there's really no breakdowns, no room to get in. But someone's got to beat their man off the dribble. And I think there was just way too much stagnant dribbling on top, which you see there, and just kind of getting in there a turnover. And when you do break down the defenses, you're going to see them do it here in the play. You've got to really attack. So again, ball's coming out. You get over here. Look at this. Now you got to make the right plays. They collapse. They do a good job of collapsing, but you got to force that. You can't allow one guy to guard his man head up. Everybody else is in help position. Everybody's just big and showing their arms and closing down space. But they've got to break people down and draw and kick. And as I said earlier, you've got to attack Bam, because that brings in Williams and Tice. Because when the big guy comes over to shot block, as Bam will, you've got to drop that off to Tice or Williams, or you make somebody cover down. So when the cover down comes from either the weak side corner or the slot, and that's a long recovery. The Celtics did not get good shots coming down the stretch. And finally, I thought Smart played so well early. Brown is their best guy off the dribble, and they barely touched the ball in the last 5 minutes of the game. They've got to be better offensively, move the ball better, and get other people involved in it.
Well, our Jim Jackson is joining us now. Jimmy, I'm assuming you can hear me now? Yes? All good? Have we worked?
I got you.
Okay, everything technically out on your end. You and I have talked so often, Jimmy, about Kemba Walker's importance to this team. He had 19 points on 19 field goal attempts in Game 1. How much of this team's success in this series do you see rising and falling on his efficiency?
Well, I mean, it's important because Kemba, not just from scoring, but being aggressive, making plays. When he's making shots now, and Kevin will tell you this, now the defense really has to step up, in particular on the pick and roll and guard him, and that's when he can get downhill and make plays. When he's struggling with his shots, now you don't have to help as much, especially on his drive or on his pull-up. He's always dangerous, okay, in regards to what he can do. Because he made some big shots down the line of the game. But when he's not as consistent, the defense now can spread out a little bit more and cover the shooters on the perimeter. He said it himself. He said, listen, I'm not playing well. Well, when you're not playing well, that means you're not scoring. That means you're not shooting well. I think for Kemba to be really effective, if the ball doesn't go on the rim from the perimeter, one, figure out ways to get out in transition, get some layup. Second, get to the free throw line. Third, if you're struggling from making shots, make plays. Utilize the pick and roll. Get downhill. Draw the defense. Now, instead of getting 7 or 8 assists, maybe get 10, 12, 13, 14 assists. That makes up for the lack of scoring until you can find your rhythm. And again, this is kind of new for Kemba to be in this situation playoff-wise. So just like a lot of the young guys for the Miami Heat are learning, Kemba's also in that situation.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Playoff Central Live will continue with a look ahead to Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, set to tip off tomorrow night on TNT. LeBron James, the top-seeded Lakers, taking on the comeback kids, the third-seeded Denver Nuggets, who dug out of a 3-1 hole not once, but twice.
Joel Embiid is
really unhappy
because the internet keeps using old gifts to react to his highlights. Mountain Dew presents the Joel Deserves Better gift collection.
Now I'm so happy.
Playoff Central Live is brought to you by AT&T 5G.
Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers had a commanding 3-1 lead in this best-of-7 series, but Denver's terrific comebacks led by Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, and here we are.
Go out there and take it. Go out there and take it. You deserve it. Enjoy the moment. Have fun. Let's go out there and take it. Go together. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Jokic, nice feed inside to Harris, and Harris gets that one to go.
That's some pass right there.
But as Jokic drives inside, lays it up and in. Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets, a good start. Meanwhile, for the Clippers, one guy who doesn't seem like he's affected by the pressure is Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, a three-pointer.
Kawhi Leonard has been outstanding in this first half.
Kawhi Leonard drives to the goal and throws it down. An emphatic finish. Well, the Nuggets are in familiar territory, down by double figures.
Here's my challenge to you, man. Keep on believing in each other. Keep on believing in each other, all right?
They were down 16 in Game 5. They were down 19 in Game 6. Can the Nuggets do it again? Jamal Murray for 3. Murray drives on Morris. Now pulls back, two-pointer. Got it. He is red hot. Denver they're playing loose and free. Jokic one-on-one with Harrell. Give and go. Craig banks it home. Another stunning turnaround for the Denver Nuggets here in Game 7.
Right now, the ball is flying. They can't keep up with it.
Mike Malone's Nuggets showing the poise once again. Inside pass. Jokic flips it up and in. Murray trying to get it. Shot clock winding down. Murray puts up a 3. Bang! Jamal Murray from downtown. They are the comeback kids from Colorado. The team basketball that they have played in these last 3 games has been spectacular.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's go. Let's go. Yes, sir.
And will make NBA history by becoming the first team to overcome 2 3-1 deficits in the same postseason.
This is a special crew. Nobody think that we can do something, and we prove ourselves and prove everybody that we can do something. Are you going to say something?
Go ahead, bro.
6-0 in elimination games here in the bubble as the Denver Nuggets are going back to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in 11 years.
I've never been around a team like this, man. For real. Inspirational group. Love all y'all, man. We got work to do.
Wow, the Denver Nuggets have now tied a record previously set by the franchise in 1994 with 6 wins in a single postseason while facing elimination. The Miami Heat, Houston Rockets, and Phoenix Suns all also did it in the 90s. But for now, here's more on Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals from the coaches and players, starting with Mike Malone on the challenge ahead.
We still have a lot of work to do. Western Conference Finals, we know we're playing a very talented and well-rested Laker team. But I do know this, our guys are up for that challenge.
We know what we got. And when we're all clicking, when we're making shots like that and playing defense together, we're a top 4 team, top 3 team in the league. And we're trying to prove to be the number 1. We've been doing this. I don't know how many times we got to prove it over. We've been doing this, and we have the talent to do it.
The confidence that they're playing with, the chip on their shoulder that they're playing with was really noticeable. Obviously, they're a very resilient group. To come back from 3-1 twice in the same year, and we're gonna have to play great to beat them.
They have a lot of fight. They don't really quit. They're always, trying to play to win, no matter if they're down 19, which they were in Game 5 and 6, still coming back to win it. So it kind of just tells you the story of what kind of heart that team has.
Obviously, I have the utmost respect for LeBron James. Had a chance to coach him for 5 years, know who he is and what he's about. And I'm sure he was watching every one of our games, taking notes, because his intelligence is off the charts.
Yeah, Joker is one of the most unique players in the world, and one of the most unique players ever to play the center position in this league. They understand his ability to pass in the basketball and do a great job speed cutting through the lane, and it'll make it very difficult to guard. It does, make this series a little different, a lot different actually than last series. Obviously. We're going to be the LA Lakers, who we've been all year. We adjusted to a small ball team last series, but, I would expect us to return to form.
And Jim, we just heard Frank Vogel call Nikola Jokic one of the most unique players in the entire world. He affects the game in so many ways, but his passing may be his most impressive skill. What did you see from him in Game 7 against the Clippers as far as being a facilitator goes?
Well, really, it started back, I think, at the beginning of the series, understanding how the Clippers were guarding him. Just a simple handoff right here. But again, the patience to understand where the defense is at, but more importantly, where the cutters, his teammates would be, not rushing here in transition, able to push the ball up. And then it looks simple, but that bounce pass on the move, on time, on target is difficult. A little back down right here. Again, always surveying the defense. He has 2 options here. He sees Kawhi coming. Okay, yeah. The cutter, Jeremy Grant, provides a release, and understanding that Gary Harris is going to fill the lane in there. And then again, inside, identifying where the defense and where this Denver Nuggets team, I think, really helps Nikola Jokic is their ability to cut and read the defense themselves. And this is a tough pass. Leads right to the basket inside. And if you're a player, listen, I played with Arvydas Sabonis, one of the best passing centers ever. Vlade Divac and also Chris Webber. One thing I took pride in is making myself available to those guys to be able to get easy layups. Again, you have to be unselfish. Jokic didn't shoot the ball particularly well from the field, but his ability to survey, to be patient, to put the ball out there on time so guys can just finish, it makes it a lot more complicated to take all of the things away from Nikola, because even when he's not effective putting the ball in the rim, as we saw through that film right there, he can beat you off the dribble off the pass as well as anybody.
Because, Coach, the Nuggets now have essentially rewritten NBA history with not one but two comebacks from a 3-1 deficit in back-to-back playoff series. Are we all collectively underestimating what they could achieve against the top-seeded Lakers?
Well, I had them underestimated twice when they were down 3-1 in each series. I said, they're gone. Yeah. And they came back and played. So yeah, I guess we are all underestimating them. You know, I mean, I looked at them. I thought the Clippers just had their number, and they just fought back. Jimmy made a good point. You know, when you have good passing teams, and I was really fortunate to play on some really, really tremendous passing teams, all your cuts are rewarded. Every time you make a good cut and you do different things, it's rewarded with a nice pass. And what happens, it's so hard to guard Denver because everybody's cutting and everybody's moving because they know it's going to come back to him. And this guy right here, Murray's been on fire. He took a little hiatus there after he went crazy against Utah for a few games, but then he came back. And his ability to make shots for himself and create shots for himself. We talked about it earlier, Kristen. You have to have those guys that can get their own shot. We talked about Jimmy Butler with Miami, but he can get his own, but they don't need to get their own. When you talk about them playing the Clippers and what happened in Game 7, they were getting layups and little lead passes for just lay-ins and dunks and wide open shots off of Jokic's passing. And everything that the Clippers got was contested. And everything was a hand in their face. There wasn't as much movement from the Clippers as there was from Denver. So, yes, we have underestimated this team, but it's a fun team to watch. And they're going to go against a very, very good defensive unit in the Lakers, and it's going to really stress this team, and they're going to have to be on top of their game to beat the Lakers for sure.
Well, we're going to take another break, but we are with you until tip-off between the Boston Celtics and Miami Heat in Game 2 of this Eastern Conference Final, with the Heat holding the 1-0 lead. Playoff Central Live continues. We're with you until tip-off between Kemba Walker and the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat as the Heat overcame a 14-point deficit in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals to take the 1-0 lead. But first, we're looking ahead to the Western Conference Finals. Calvin Booth, currently serving as the general manager of the Denver Nuggets. Here's a look at his bio as he was named GM in July and played in 366 games over his 10-year NBA career, starting in 1999. So for more on the Western Conference Finals and the Nuggets' run thus far, we welcome in Calvin. And the Nuggets, I think, have seemed to surprise everybody except for themselves. What is it, Calvin, about this team that has been its best when it plays from behind?
It's been the story of the past 3 seasons for us. A couple of seasons ago, we had to win 6 straight games to play that elimination game against Minnesota, which we came up short in. And last year we played in 2 7-game series, and so I think it's just the fabric of who we are.
Calvin, two-part question, too, just Jimmy Jackson. One, how much did last year's loss, especially against Portland, the maturity part of it this year, play into being able to advance this year? And also the closeness of this group, in particular when times are tough, tend to draw together. How did that also play a role into advancing to the Western Conference Final?
Sorry, I had trouble hearing you, Jim. I didn't hear the question.
And of course, it's a 2-part one, always. Yeah.
You just blocked me. This is an Ohio thing. Me and you, Calvin. Come on, man. Okay, but look, last year's disappointment in the playoffs, especially losing to Portland, the team matured. How much did that play into this year's advance? But also the closeness of this team when things got tough, they were able to band together. So how did those 2 factors play into getting finally back to Western Conference Final?
Yeah, I think you always learn a lot from your losses. And the Portland game was particularly tough because we had a big lead in that game and just didn't make enough shots. And they had some great performances from C.J. McCollum. Evan Turner came off the bench and made some big plays, and they just beat us and they closed out. So I think this year we're a little bit more focused and trying to be sharp and understanding that we had to make shots against the Clippers if we wanted to close them out. So I think to your second part, it's just this group has a toughness to them, that just gets them through hard times. We got Millsap a couple years ago as a free agent. Nicole and Jamal grown up. Gary, Will Barton. We've added Jeremy Grant to the group. Even guys off the bench like Mason Plumlee and Torrey Craig and Monte Morris, they all have that tough gene and they're winners.
Yeah, Calvin, you mentioned him, Paul Millsap. I thought the whole series changed in Game 5 when he kind of went nose to nose with Morris and just said, "Hey, let's go. We're not backing down. We're going to fight you for it." And how big is it to have a guy like Millsap, who's a veteran, around so many young guys? Because you really have a young crew.
I mean, he's really set the tone for us defensively more than anything over the last couple of seasons. He's a guy that leads by example. He's not going to say a lot, but the guys, when he does talk, they listen because they know his body of work. They know he has credibility around the league. And
how often, Calvin, are we underrating Nikola Jokic when we have these conversations about the best of the best in the NBA? Hey,
look, the All-NBA team just came out, and there's so many good players in the league. And you look at the second team, you're like, geez, man, like a lot of these guys seem like they should be on the first team. But then you look at the first team, you're like, well, who would you take off? And so I just think the talent in the league is going up. And I think people appreciate how good Nikola is. And as every series passes, they gain more appreciation. But it's just a league that's loaded with talent. And I felt like Nikola performed like a first-team All-NBA player this year. But unfortunately, there are just a lot of good players that deserve to be on the first team.
Calvin, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We have actually seen your schedule, and it is busier than any of ours. So thanks for fitting it in.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Now, in other NBA news, let's take a look at the personnel changes within the Sacramento Kings organization as of late. Hiring Monte McNair as general manager after serving as assistant GM of the Houston Rockets, and Joe Dumars has been named chief strategy officer after serving as special advisor to the GM and interim VP of basketball operations. Now we're with you until tip-off between the Boston Celtics and Tyler Hero and the Miami Heat in Game 2. At least 5 threes in 4 games this postseason. By the way, he's the only player in franchise history with more such games. Ray Allen, 5 times in 2008 and in 2010. Now let's hear from Coach Brad Stevens ahead of Game 2.
Hey, Brad, you've talked a lot about what Jason and Jalen have accomplished at the ages of 22 and 23, respectively. How much do you think of that has been being a part of winning teams and being in the culture that you've created as compared to them being handed over, a franchise that was not performing as well?
Well, I think obviously their own personal growth and their teammates have everything to do with it. Culture is not anything that you've achieved traditionally or in your history. The culture is the people in the room and everybody doing their job every day as well as they can. And so those guys have, been leaders in that room since the moment they walked in. And, for the most part, it's been a, pretty amazing path for both of them.
Abby Chin.
Brad, the inevitable Gordon Hayward question. He was upgraded to doubtful, and then you listed him as out tonight, but how's he doing?
He's out. Seems to be doing all right. And we'll have another update, I'm sure, tomorrow.
Keith Smith.
Hey, Brad. In Game 1, Miami got in early foul trouble with Duncan Robinson, and they had to come in with Tyler Hero. You guys had really been defending well until that point. Do you think that early foul trouble actually, in a weird way, may have helped them and threw your guys off a little bit?
They've got good players up and down their roster, so when one gets in foul trouble, they can bring in other guys that can be very impactful. Obviously, Hero is playing at an elite level right now, but Robinson's a guy that we couldn't respect more with his ability to get shots off at tough shots and make shots. So I don't know that there's any advantage gained per se. I think that ultimately both those guys are really good players.
Tom Westerholm.
Hey Brad, Jason Tatum obviously was named All-NBA yesterday. Just curious your thoughts and how happy you guys are.
Yeah, I mean, he's had quite a season. You know, I've been lucky enough to be around now, I think 3 All-NBA guys in my time here, and you know, the seasons that those guys put together are remarkable. And I thought Jason's, you know, ascension as the season went on, his improvement, made him well deserving. And I think that, you know, he's just going to keep getting better and better.
John Corrales.
Right, I know obviously you're just focused on game 2, but we still haven't seen a schedule for the rest of the series after game 3. How does that impact your preparation? Does that have any impact on the plan for Gordon Hayward?
Well, since I didn't even know that until you just said it, I would say that it hasn't impacted my preparation at all. I just figure we're playing every other day, but you know, I guess that'll be determined after the fact.
All right, we'll wrap it up right there. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
Jimmy Butler had 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in Game 1. And we're with you until tip-off of Game 2 between the Celtics and Heat next. Playoff Central Live continues. Because really, number 1 is always Kevin Harlan, right? We're with you until tip-off between the Celtics and Heat as the Heat overcame a 14-point deficit in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals to take the 1-0 lead. The game did require an overtime period, of which the Heat are an NBA best 9-2. So let's hear from Coach Eric Spoelstra ahead of Game 2.
The Celtics just announced that Gordon Hayward is out. He was listed as doubtful anyway. Is there sort of a plan A or a plan B for you, or is there just this is how we play the Celtics, no matter what their lineup or rotation is?
Well, he's out, so we're preparing for him not playing. That simplifies it quite a bit.
I guess my question was, though, you know, through your scouting and everything else and your walkthroughs, do you sort of have to account for that? And if I could just sort of expand,
yeah, you do.
Does and would Gordon Hayward make the Celtics? Thank you.
Well, he's not playing tonight. I don't even want to get into that. They have enough other things that are on this head coach's mind, and that's what we're prepared for tonight. But of course, you had to prepare in the days leading up to this in the event that he possibly could play. He's close, so it's going to happen at some point.
Thanks, Paul. It looks like it's it for today.
Thank you.
We've got a couple of minutes left to wrap up with final thoughts. So, Coach, let me start with you. Who wins this game and why?
Ooh, Celtics, because they're more desperate. They go down 2-0. I was playing and I was a rookie, and like the guy's like, yeah, you know, we got to win this game, and I'm like, yeah, 1-1's a lot different than 2-0.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and goes, yeah, rookie. He goes, of course it is. They got to win 4 of the next 5 if we go up 2-0. And I was like, oh, yeah, math. And so, yeah, the Celtics are going to be more desperate tonight. So I think they're going to come out, hopefully have more ball movement and body movement, and keep Brown and Smart involved in the game for 48 minutes.
What do you think, Jim?
I am awful at predicting games, so I try not to do it as much. But I do think Boston is going to make some adjustments here. 2 things. 1, 48-26 points in the paint. They got to shore that up. Also, defensively get stops and get out in transition. Only 10 fast break points. So I'm going with Boston for the desperation, and the guy without the tie on the set right there is leading the way. So I'm going to go with him.
Atta baby, JJ. I knew you'd come with me. And, JJ, good point. Because you know what? The Celtics never drove. The last quarter and a half into overtime, they never got the damn ball in the paint. And that's why the paint points were such a big disparity. Yeah. And against pressure, as you know, you've got to attack pressure. You cannot sit back and allow people just to pressure up on the perimeter and just play east-west.
Well, perhaps they're in the locker room listening to you, Coach. We'll see when we're back as Playoff Central Live continues after the game with post-game player and press conferences. So join us right here on NBA TV.
This is NBA Action.